Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Sara Starr. On November 27, 2017, at approximately 9 a.m., the Sherry County Sheriff's Department in Alabama, United States, received a call from a witness who believed her friend had taken her own life. Police were dispatched to a home owned by a local church. The home had previously been the pastor's residence, but had recently been rented out exclusively to church members. The tenant at the time of the incident was Sara Starr, a recently divorced mother of 3. At 38, she had been married for 16 years, but her relationship had hit a rough patch, leading her to make the difficult decision to divorce. Sara was at a turning point in her life, facing the challenges of being a single parent without her husband's support. She had to take on all parental responsibilities, including providing for the needs of the children since her husband did not help at first. However, without her husband constantly pressuring her, her situation seemed to improve. Life became easier for her. Sara Starr was born in 1979 in the small town of LBI, Kansas, USA. She is a doting mother. She easily manages and cares for her children. She is a teacher at a local elementary school where she teaches literature. Sara loves her job. People describe her as knowledgeable and calm, with the ability to engage and inspire students. Sara's marriage to Jason began in February 2001 when she was 22 years old and had just graduated with a bachelor's degree in education. Jason, who was 28, had recently returned from military service. He had previously been married and had a son, but after facing disagreements with his first wife, they divorced. He was immediately drawn to Sara's kindness and beauty. Initially, their marriage seemed stable and happy, and Sara often shared how well things were going. However, there were growing concerns among friends and family about Jason's behavior. Many noticed that he would frequently insult and humiliate her in public. After 5 years of marriage, the couple had twins, then another set of twins, which was quite a rare event. She was overjoyed to become a mother of 4, but Jason was unhappy. The couple lived in a small town of Colby, Kansas, where they grew up, but they decided to move to Alabama. They rented a house in their new home and Jason found a job. In addition to his main job, he started a business. Meanwhile, Sara became a stay-at-home mother, taking care of 4 young children and managing household chores. It was a lot of work, but she did it well. However, Jason's income was not enough, so Sara took on a part-time job at a school. This increased her workload while her husband did not provide much support. Sara found a strong community of believers and became an active member of her local Baptist church. Her easygoing, outgoing personality helped her settle into her new environment. In 2016, she became a 4th-grade teacher at a nearby elementary school. People described her as a very positive and friendly woman. However, behind her cheerful exterior, she faced difficulties, especially after she gave birth to her second set of twins. Jason felt overwhelmed. He often lost his temper with Sara because of the noise from the children, lack of sleep, and the mess they made. Sara admitted that she was exhausted by this marriage. She decided to divorce and moved into a house provided by the church for a small fee and began the divorce process. Because of Jason's business, along with the division of assets and child custody, the divorce process could drag on for years. Fortunately, she had the support of her church, which helped her through the difficult times. Although Sara was a devoted mother and managed her responsibilities well, the ongoing hardships took a toll on her mental health. She became increasingly anxious, frequently arguing with her husband, with Jason saying that Sara focused on spending his money on unnecessary items and was addicted to shopping. This behavior worsened after their divorce, leading to significant financial difficulties. These made it difficult for her to sleep and she suffered from mild depression. When Sara decided to move out of the house she shared with Jason, she asked her friends, Dana and Lawrence, a married couple, for help. They later remembered how anxious Sara seemed during the move. She hurriedly tried to load her belongings into the car but kept forgetting items, forcing her to run back and forth from the house to the street multiple times. This frantic behavior raised suspicions about her mental state. Sara was particularly worried that Jason might return while she was moving, as she didn't want him to find out and interfere. When Sara and her friends arrived at her new home, Jason appeared. Lawrence then asked Jason not to enter, and Jason complied. Jason lingered near the house for a while before leaving. Lawrence recalled that when Jason appeared, Sara was very scared. She was shaking and crying, and she had been suffering from stress and anxiety for a long time. She truly believed that Jason had come to harm her, especially since he had previously threatened her with violence if she asked for help. 2 years later, the divorce was finalized. They decided to share custody of their children. At that time, their twins were 12 and 7 years old. Jason was also ordered to pay monthly child support to all 4 children and his wife, who was still struggling financially. The divorce had a significant impact on Jason's finances. He was ordered to pay $3,000. At the time, Jason was earning over $6,000 a month, meaning the court ordered him to pay half of his income to Sara. However, she did not receive any of his assets, so she continued to live in the church. Jason also moved out, but to a house near his ex-wife's house, where he now lives with his mother. On November 27, 2017, Sara was expected to return to work after Thanksgiving, but she did not show up for class that morning, which was very unusual for her. Colleagues were unable to contact her as she did not respond to messages on various platforms, raising concern about her behavior. Some teachers speculated that something serious might have occurred. Consequently, a colleague was sent to check on her. Tragically, at around 8:30 a.m., they discovered Sara outside her home with multiple gunshot wounds. Police determined that Sara was likely the victim of a violent attack. They found that she had left her home around 6:30 a.m. to go to work but was shot in the chest shortly after. An unknown assailant had fired a shotgun at close range, also wounding her in the head. Neighbors later informed the police that they had heard gunfire that morning. However, since it was a rural area where hunting was common, they did not think much. In these regions, residents often use firearms for hunting or to deter wild animals. Forensic experts found no fingerprints or tire marks at the crime scene. However, it was soon discovered that Sara had just gone through a complicated divorce from her husband, which aroused the police's suspicions. Initial witnesses, Dana and Lawrence, told police that Sara's divorce followed a difficult marriage. During the final months of the divorce proceedings, Sara expressed fear of her husband, believing that he might try to harm her. Jason lived only a few minutes' walk from her rented home. With this information, the police began to focus on the prime suspect, Jason. He was brought in for questioning, but he denied any involvement in Sara's murder. He was released a few hours later when his alibi was confirmed. He had breakfast at a restaurant with his children, as evidenced by surveillance camera footage and witness testimony. Although Jason was released, suspicions surrounding him remained as Jason had a strong motive to harm Sara. Furthermore, Sara's friends and family confirmed that she was terrified of Jason. A press conference was held to update the public on the investigation, during which it was announced that the state governor had offered a $5,000 reward for any information leading to Sara's killer. A local resident later added another $500 to the reward fund. Unfortunately, these efforts were fruitless. Police asked for the public's help in providing vital information to help move the case forward, but no leads came up and the case stalled for years. The local sheriff's department cooperated with the state police. However, the case remained stalled until December 2021. Police believe Jason was involved in the crime, possibly hiring a killer. He had a motive, as he had to pay more than half of his income to his ex-wife and children. It is believed that financial disputes led to the murder, and although he tried to gain full custody of the children, he was unsuccessful in court. While searching Jason's computer, police discovered a manuscript for a book he planned to publish. The manuscript contained chapters discussing his relationship with Sara. Jason expressed a strong desire to avoid paying her the court-ordered amount and considered ways to avoid paying her. His writings included many derogatory comments about Sara and women in general, which added to the police's suspicions of him. Additionally, police reviewed Jason's financial transactions and discovered that between September 7th and November 15th, the year Sara was murdered, he made 7 transactions totaling $2,600. These transactions were made between Jason and a person named Lily. The investigation revealed that Lily was friends with Jason's brother, Darren, and that they had no further financial interactions. Through discussions with Lily, police learned that Jason had gifted his brother Darren a 2016 motorcycle, which was a costly item. The reason behind such an expensive gift was unclear, especially since Jason did not seem to have the financial means to afford it. He defended his actions by saying that he had been in an accident, but chose not to report it to the police. Instead, Jason gave his damaged bike to Darren to repair. Darren estimated the cost of the repairs at $5,000. Jason decided to send the money through Darren's friend, Lily. The total amount transferred was $2,600, which Jason claimed was for the motorcycle repairs. However, police suspect that this may actually have been a way to repay a debt to Darren, who may have been involved in the attack and death of Sara. It is believed that Lily was used to conceal payments for the crime and help conceal their involvement. His brother, Darren, is described as a difficult person who had a difficult life in Texas. Darren has a criminal record that includes a 2013 speeding arrest in which illegal drugs were found. Although he received a short sentence for drug possession, this history has raised suspicions about his possible involvement in more serious crimes. Police investigated the brothers' communications and data, including seizing their cell phones. They identified Darren as the new prime suspect in Sara's case. He traveled to Alabama just before Thanksgiving 2017. Darren arrived in the area on November 18th and stayed for 10 days, often staying near Sara's home. Darren's location was tracked, showing he was near the church and turned off his mobile phone around midnight, just before Sara's murder. This behavior suggested he was watching the Sara and trying to hide his location from the police. His phone was back on around 10 a.m. the next day, back in Texas. Later that day, he sent Jason a coded message about a successful deer hunt, indicating they were using coded language to communicate. One of Sara's neighbors reported seeing a motorcycle that looked like Jason's near her house several times before the murder. Shortly after the crime, the same motorcycle was spotted leaving the area, which added to the evidence. Based on this information, police determined that Jason had hired Darren to kill his ex-wife, leading to serious charges against both men. In December 2021, Jason requested a lawyer and denied any involvement in the crime, confidently asserting that the police would have no evidence against him. However, he later confessed to killing Sara, repeatedly stating that he was guilty. Despite his confession, he was released on bail pending a hearing, requiring him to wear an ankle monitor. His trial is set for June 27, 2022. Darren's situation was quite complex. He went into hiding, prompting a nationwide FBI manhunt. His photo was widely distributed, and initially, a $10,000 reward was offered for information leading to his capture, which later increased to $22,500. On February 5, 2022, Darren turned himself in Texas. He chose not to plead guilty and waived his right to wait for the hearing while under house arrest, instead opting to stay in prison until the trial started. Throughout this period, Jason and Darren frequently spoke on the phone, but their conversations were monitored, and they did not discuss anything that could be used against them. The preparation of the case was delayed because there was a lot of circumstantial evidence but not enough direct evidence. After the police completed their investigation, on September 11, 2023, the trial of Jason Starr and Darren Starr finally began. The prosecution aimed to determine Jason's financial motive, emphasizing that he did not want to pay more than half of his income to Sara. They presented substantial circumstantial evidence, including Jason's contact with Darren's brother in Texas, his use of his motorcycle to travel to Alabama, and the transfer of money. Lily claimed that she was not involved in any wrongdoing. According to her statement, she was unaware of what Jason and Darren were doing and was surprised to learn she could be seen as being an accomplice to the crime. Eventually, it was decided not to pursue any charges against Lily. The attorney pointed out that there was a lack of strong evidence. There was no murder weapon found and there were no witnesses to the attack in person or recorded on surveillance cameras. Jason's computer notes appear to be an expression of his emotions and frustration after losing custody of his children and facing significant financial burdens. These notes reflected his emotional state and not any intent to kill. Therefore, none of this could be considered direct evidence of a desire to kill. During the 10 days Darren was in Alabama, the brothers did not speak to each other. They may have used disposable phones purchased online to communicate. The lack of any physical evidence at the scene of the massacre, such as shoe prints, fingerprints, DNA, or even motorcycle tire tracks. In addition, the lawyer also presented a video showing Jason having breakfast with his children in a restaurant 10 kilometers from Sara's house, which happened at the same time the attackers shot Sara. Jason fully cooperated with the investigation from the beginning by allowing police to search his cell phone and computer. His attorney highlighted this point, trying to convince the jury that a true criminal would never allow such a search, especially if they knew about the evidence against them. However, this argument was not convincing, especially given Jason's behavior and his confession after his arrest. The trial lasted 6 days. The jury then spent 6 hours deliberating their verdict. Ultimately, the jury decided that Jason Starr and Darren Starr were guilty of murder and conspiracy to murder. On January 4, 2024, both were sentenced to life in prison without parole and ordered to pay a $25,000 fine. Darren's attorney later announced plans to appeal the verdict, while Jason's defense attorney remained silent on the matter due to Jason's confession to the murder. The children were placed in the care of Sara's parents. In court, the older twin expressed a desire to cut ties with their father, stating that they no longer wanted to see him,